Welcome to Martha Runs the World, a podcast with a new take on running, fitness, and all things health-oriented. I'm Martha Hughes, your host, and each week I present a new topic that is of interest to all runners. Hi, and welcome to episode 288 of Martha Runs the World. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I have a great guest, and I'll talk about her in just a moment. But first, how are you? How's your running going along? Mine is coming along just fine. I am getting my long runs in. I am working very hard at training. Things are moving along. I actually have a guest this week. She is terrific. Jenna Burris is a licensed professional counselor. She calls herself the trail therapist, and she's the first one. She actually invented that term, and I think it's a really cool term, and I think you listeners will appreciate it in that she likes to bring about the trail and therapy in a really nice way to help people to bring therapy into nature, into a much more natural setting rather than a stuffy office, which I appreciate and I like a lot. So without further ado, here is Jenna Burris. Well, you welcome to the program. She's a licensed professional counselor, but she's known as the trail therapist. Jenna Burris. Hi, Jenna. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks, Martha. How are you?
Yeah, I am doing great. I'm really excited to have you on today. Ever since I saw your profile on Facebook, it's fascinated me, and I've had a lot of questions for you. So first, let's start at the beginning. When did you decide you wanted to become a therapist?
Somewhere around 25 years ago, I knew I wanted to do something that was helpful and useful to people. And that was one of the three things I was starting to kind of focus my attention on. And I decided to finish my degree in psychology. And I really loved it. And while I was in college, working in the Department of Psychology while going to school, the professor said, ever consider continuing your education here, getting your master's in counseling? And I said, yeah, great, let's do it. They saw something there that I probably wasn't totally aware of yet. And it ended up being a really great path for me.
That's awesome. What's the most rewarding part about being a therapist?
I think the most rewarding part about being a therapist is it's so rewarding to see people's growth. I do have several clients that I've seen over an extended period of time. And, someone comes in saying, here's this particular issue or problem that I'm struggling with. And to not only see that necessarily resolved, but just these little personal nuggets and growth and expression of emotion and starting to experience a better quality of life just feels really good and really rewarding that I'm contributing something. But just seeing people grow and change and flourish is really nice.
That's really cool. And that's probably the number one reason why you should do it anyway, right? Just to see that people improve, So with running, did you start running before or after you became a therapist?
That's a good question. I think I started running while going to school. It was just kind of a way to let off steam. Going to school, meaning going to college and grad school. 5K here and there, but also just letting off steam, and it kind of grew as I feel like it does in our lives when we get involved in the sport. It really took off for me. So we started doing long distances after my daughter was born. She is 9, almost 10 now. And I was running half marathons at that point, but she, when she was born, separated my pelvis. And so I had, some difficulty getting around, and I had to give myself a goal to work towards. And I said, okay, in 1 year from when she's born, I'm going to run my first marathon. And that's where that insanity started.
Well, welcome to the insanity of endurance running. So when did you discover trails?
I discovered the trails through a friend of mine, who is a long distance trail runner as well, lived in my neighborhood, during that time. And we would run together anyway, but she started getting into the trails and the longer distances and she kind of pulled me along. And we still are running together. She lives a couple hours south of me now. I moved north. Um, but yeah, just through friendship, people who run and walk together.
Isn't that amazing when you've been running roads for years? And I ran roads for years and years before I realized, and I hiked on trails, but then I never thought, you mean you can run on trails? I never put them together. And then all of a sudden, when a friend or someone introduces you to trail running, you go, wow, it's like this whole world opens up. It's like the sun comes out. It's isn't it a great discovery?
It is a great discovery. And it's so sensory. There's so much to see and to feel under your feet, to see rivers running by you, to see animals on the trails, to breathe in a little bit more. I do think there's something to like those phytochemicals that the trees are producing that we're breathing in that create a little bit more um, openness, a little more brain productivity, those kinds of things. And I feel it there.
Yeah. I mean, all of a sudden you don't need music to keep you going.
Mm-mm.
You've got all the sounds of nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a different experience. And and it was such an eye-opening thing. What are your favorite trails to run on, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Oh, yeah. So I'm in Wisconsin,
Mhm.
kind of east central Wisconsin, and I'm not too far from the Ice Age Trail, which is a
Right.
national scenic um trail. And I'm gonna get the number wrong, but I know it's well over 1,000 miles throughout the
Yeah.
state of Wisconsin. It's probably like 1,600 miles, but I'm sorry if I got those numbers wrong. And I live about 20 minutes from part of it, and I love running the Ice Age Trail. It's rugged, it's remote, it's a lot of ups and downs for Wisconsin.
Mhm.
I don't know if people think of the landscape of Wisconsin, but we've got these kettle moraines out there with, hills and it's not mountainy, but it's lovely. I really love running there. Anytime I travel, I just like to explore. I like to see what trails are around,
Yeah.
and check those out. It was recently in Virginia, in Fredericksburg, and it was fun to explore the trails out there. Have to look all that up before I go. But locally, Ice Age Trail is where it's at.
Very challenging too. Lots of roots and rocks
Roots and
and
rocks
yeah.
and oh yeah. I've, twisted an ankle a few times out there for sure.
Yeah, that we don't have in the West Coast. I live in California and I've got elevation if I want it.
Mm,
Although I did manage to fall on on a trail with lots of rocks, but you guys have those roots and we don't have that here. So
yeah, lots of that.
yeah, yeah. So, what is trail therapy?
Okay. Trail therapy is I've named it trail therapy, but it's really just a form of ecotherapy. And ecotherapy is essentially a way of using the outdoors to facilitate healing and growth in mental health in the mental health world. And I know oftentimes when we think about psychotherapy, we think about going to an office or to a clinic, walking into a nice little room that maybe is well decorated and sitting on a couch across from a therapist who's maybe sitting on another couch or a chair. And it's wonderful. And I've been doing that for years too. And there's so many great ways to and methodologies, in the traditional office space to be able to work on our mental health and to grow and to heal. I have personally found that opening the four walls to the vastness of outdoors is incredibly healing, for myself, for the clients that I work with. I start when I have been trail running the last few years, all of this started as a little bit of a joke that like, oh, if I could just do this outside, I'm outside having wonderful conversations with friends. We're going deep. We're telling stories. We're healing some of our own stuff. And they would jokingly say, Jenna, are you going to send me a bill? And I would laugh. Ha, ha, ha. I wish I could do that. And last fall, something clicked. Why aren't I doing that? And I'd already been taking a couple of traditional office clients just out for walks. Like down to Lake Michigan, beautiful trail. Wisconsin has beautiful lakefront trails and for Lake Michigan. And it would just be a different world. There's something about the fresh air, something about the metaphor that is created in nature, especially like water and the lake and all the emotions. Like think about, we talk about water um and the emotion in water. It's really angry today. It's really calm and peaceful today. There's something bubbling under the surface. Like there's just so many words and metaphors we use about our own human experience with what's outside. And yeah, maybe went a little off track there. Does that answer your
Oh
question?
yeah, oh absolutely, yeah. So just being outside and talking to your client while you're on a run or while you're walking is
Walking,
is
yeah.
is really really helpful.
Yeah,
And
and even if
yeah,
you're not mobile, I have
hmm
some clients who may be less mobile or who don't
yeah,
have the right shoes,
hmm
and we can sit on a bench under a
yeah.
beautiful tree, utilizing our surroundings, utilizing nature, utilizing the fresh air. Yeah, it doesn't have to be rigorous exercise for it to be beneficial.
Of course, and it would I would think it would be less intimidating too than to go into a sterile, maybe a little stuffy office, or into an office building with all kinds of
Hmm.
medical offices in and stuff like that. People that's kind of not fun sometimes.
Yeah, depending on the office that you're going,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
This definitely creates a change of scenery. Something about movement too, moving our bodies the way we were intended to.
Mm-hmm.
We have, interestingly, just in the last, 100, 200 years, we used to be outside so much more,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
probably 90% of the time,
Mm-hmm.
indoors 10% of the time, just to sleep. And we've had such a shift in that we've lost some of our connection to ourselves in nature because we're indoors all the time.
It's true.
And so just to be outdoors, I feel like it's just more state.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some healing in that, the reconnection to the greater world we're living in, reconnection to ourselves, that it kind of opens that world up to.
It's true. That is very true. Are your clients now, because of that, are they mostly runners now, or are they mostly active people, or you just have a mix of different people then?
I have a mix of people. Not everyone is drawn to the idea of meeting outside. There's some reservations to it. But the people who I've noticed are drawn to kind of my style of what I'm doing,
Mhm.
a little more outdoorsy, but not necessarily big campers and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Just appreciators of nature who want to move and do something a little bit different. The idea of sitting, like you say, in maybe a stuffy office feels a little unappealing, but they know they want help and healing. Currently, my client load, I don't have anyone who runs with me, but we walk and we
Mhm.
hike. We play around a little bit on the beach or on some of the hills in
Mhm.
particular parks. When we work with kids, I'll bring some rocks and sidewalk chalk, or we'll build some things, or we'll play in the river. Um, Not a lot of running yet. If there's a runner that wants to do that with me, I'm 100% open to that. Um, but yeah, not a ton of runners necessarily, just people who appreciate the outdoors.
Chalk is always fun. That's a
Yeah.
good time. Yeah. So now some runners think that they can replace therapy with running. And sometimes I would think in minor instances, yes, that can be true, but in bigger ones, I don't think it is. What is your thought on this?
Yeah, and I know there's kind of jokes in the runner community that running is my therapy.
Hmm.
Yeah, we hear
Yeah.
that a lot. Running is therapeutic. It is a great tool for coping and for our mental health, but it is not a replacement for therapy, as it's not a replacement for going to a doctor or to a physical therapist or any other medical provider.
Mhm.
Um, Therapy is a lot more focused. We have strategies, interventions, goals that are very specific that we're working towards. We're trying to heal traumas. We're trying to change thought patterns. We're trying to learn to regulate and manage emotions. There's tools that we're working on, insights that we're opening up to, psychoeducation that we're doing. It's very different. Talking to a friend is great. Running is great. Wonderful tools that I would ask people to be doing outside of therapy as well, because they're super healthy, but it's not a replacement for therapy. Um, Mental health is our physical health. And I love hearing of people working on that aspect of our body. Our brain is our body.
It's true. No, it's very, very true. Scars. You posted a really important post the other day about the scars that we all have, whether they're external or internal.
Mhm.
What do scars mean to you?
It's interesting. I wasn't necessarily prepared for this one. Scars are representations of, the things that we've been through, the traumas, the hard times, the wounds they're representations of the wounds that we carry. Um, and how we heal from them or heal through them. Yeah, are seen visual. I mean, sometimes it's easier when there's a visual scar.
Hmm.
And we can say, hey, here's what happened to me. Here's the story. But we all have these internal scars. Grief of somebody we lost. So people don't necessarily look at us and think, oh, been through that kind of loss, or you've had this tragedy happen to you. You've had this assault happen. But we hold those inside, and those often come out in our behaviors, in the way we see ourselves. Those are some of our internal scars. Um, how wonderful and for me to be able to share those with people. Oftentimes, like for myself, I have internal and external scars. To be able to share my story with other people and for other people to share their story with me. There's healing in that, and to be vulnerable and to be more yourself and who you were created to be. Our scars are an important and valuable part of us, not just this shame or the story that maybe we're afraid people aren't going to connect to, but it's actually, I feel like, what people do connect to. Oh, you too. Ah, you're broken. You're vulnerable. You're not perfect either. Um, Perfectionism or that image of perfect is not, we don't connect to that.
No,
People don't
no.
that, even though there's some weird ideal in that. I feel like the wounds, those cracks, that's where we connect with each other. That's where we heal. That's where the light comes in.
Someone somewhere will always connect with things that we do. We may not see it and they may not speak up, but someone will always connect with whatever happens
Yeah.
because it doesn't happen in isolation. Nothing, we're not in a bubble. We're
Hmm.
all part of the world, and no matter what happens to us, and everyone has scars. Like you said, nobody's perfect and they can pretend to hide and not have them, but everyone has them. You can't live your life without them.
Yeah.
It's part of life, and everyone has them. And some are better at healing. Some have more support than others. Some of
Hmm.
us have to do this on our own. I mean, that's just the way life is. That's life. Now I had a very traumatic fall on a trail run last December. I went on a trail that I've been on 100 times before. I've done this trail. I know this trail in my sleep, but I tripped on a rock and I fell and I destroyed my left shoulder. I absolutely crushed it. I mean, it was the most painful thing I've ever lived through. And I've lived through a lot of painful things, but it was so painful. A trail runner was coming down the trail. I was only a mile from the trailhead, thank God. But he helped me down, and I went to the emergency room, and I had surgery like 3 days later. And I'm still in PT. I started physical therapy in February. I'm still in physical therapy, so it's taken me a long time. But I know I suffered from PTSD. Now I'm better now, but for a while I wasn't. And I know I could have gotten help from therapy. Now, I couldn't have afforded it because physical therapy was so expensive, even with insurance. But I know I
Mm-hmm.
could have been helped from therapy. So I know many people probably could be helped from therapy, from traumatic falls, from experiences like that. So I know it can help. So if you need it, please go get it if you can. I mean, if you can't afford it, like I couldn't. I had to. I mean, PT was. I've been through PT before for my hip replacements, but this was a totally different thing. I'm rambling now, but yeah, that was a really, really traumatic experience. I mean, I still can't run over that part of the trail. I will probably always walk over it. I probably won't ever run on it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, first, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
That a place that you love so much, well, you tripped and you fell and you got injured, and just the fact that you go back there and you walk over it. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
Back to that place that created pain. I feel like sometimes that's what we're doing in therapy. We go back. We make peace with it. It's okay if you don't run through it. Maybe one day you will, and maybe you won't. But you go back there and you revisit it and you honor it. Okay, here's, maybe further down the line, we can look, what are the lessons learned? Who am I now from this experience? Um, yeah, there's a lot of different ways we can heal from it too, but I don't know. I'm proud of you for going back and still doing it and walking it. We don't need to run it yet.
Thank you.
Whatever.
I'm not afraid of much, but I was afraid to go there for a while. So it took me a while to get back there, but I went back, but I've hiked on it 3 times now. And it's just like, I'm not going to let it stop me, and I'm not going to let it defeat me. That's just how I am. But, that made me afraid for a while, because it's really hard just living with one arm, with one usable arm.
Yeah,
It's really hard.
it is. It is.
It is.
And fear would be normal and natural, I would think. Okay? If it's a place, yeah, that caused pain, we don't want to go through that again. We want to stay alive. And that's kind of our body's natural response to a traumatic situation. It's trying to just keep us alive. And so that fear or avoidance or fight or flight, whatever's happening in there, that's normal.
It was
And
a difficult time. I know I was not very nice to a friend of mine who did a lot of work to help me, and I apologized to her afterwards, and we're okay now. But it was like, I know I went through, and I've never been through PTSD before, and I know I went through that for a little bit, and now I'm much more conscientious about things, and I know I'm working on that, not to blow up at people like that, because I know what that comes from. So it hadn't happened before in my life, but it happened then.
Yeah. And that tells me maybe you're harsh with yourself then as you heal and recover from that. I think sometimes what's happening externally is a reflection of maybe what's happening internally.
I think
Maybe
so.
to give yourself a little more self-compassion in that, and giving yourself some grace. Well, of course, it's going to take some time to heal. That was scary. Something you might say to a friend who's gone through something in their life.
Yeah, and I think runners can really help themselves by getting some help with, if they have a traumatic experience like that. But it is not easy to find therapy these days, is it?
No, no, there's wait lists all over the place.
Yeah. What do you
It's
think
hard.
what do you think of those online therapy options? Are they any good?
Yeah. I can't speak to all of them,
Okay.
but since COVID, there has been a significant, we weren't doing telehealth really
Right.
before COVID. And what COVID did is we all had to go online for a while.
Right.
It was either that or no therapy.
Right.
And we started to learn how accessible it made it now. More people, especially if you're rural or if you're elderly
Mm-hmm.
or if you're sick or your kid is homesick, you can
Yeah.
still get the help that you need.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of options out there. I have, of course, my opinions on it, but any local therapy office is going to have therapists like me or other therapists who are going to have in-person options or telehealth options. And we kind of leave that up to you.
Okay.
And now um, there's some brands that we've heard of out there that have, options to telehealth. Um, I, you know, I would encourage people to look at reviews. There's some that hire people as employees, and there's some that just promote independent practitioners. Like myself, there's an online site called Alma, ALMA, and I use them as an independent practitioner. They just help me. I just pay them to help me with billing and a little bit of marketing. But people are then drawn to as an entrepreneur, as an independent practitioner. They can come work with me in person or on telehealth. It's kind of up to you. But yeah, just if you're going to look at online options, just do a little research is what I would encourage.
That's a
And
great
especially
idea.
if you can get personal recommendations, which that can be tricky, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to ask for a dermatologist, it's another thing to ask people about you have a therapist.
Right. Right.
If you can find personal recommendations, I think that's the best.
We'll put your information on the website, and I'll put the information for Alma up there too, so people can take a look at that. That's a great resource. So I have one more question for you. What are some healthy, emotionally or mentally healthy things that runners can do,
Hmm.
or they can do on their own, I should say?
Yeah. That runners, and I encourage this for everybody as a runner,
Okay.
just to, especially if you're struggling with something, I'm always going to encourage therapy because I
Sure.
encourage you to go to your doctor.
Sure.
But again, I know the medical system is not super accessible all the time, but just to promote your own personal growth. I'm a big fan of journaling. Anything that comes to our mind, any reaction or responses we start to notice that you're like, I maybe overreacted to that a little bit. Write about it, journal about it, kind of reflect on it. I encourage people to start learning mindfulness, which it's not usually the picture we think of it. You can do mindfulness in 30 seconds. And just slowly increasing from there. Most people aren't sitting in a chair for 20 minutes meditating, or practicing mindfulness meditation. There's so many good books. I love referring people to different books on growth and healing, depending on what you're struggling with. I am thinking a lot. Poetry, that has a lot of stuff with emotions and emotional things. Young Pueblo is one. John Riddell is another one. Andrea Gibson, beautiful poetry that connects to the human soul to kind of help you find find who you are, to connect with. There's great podcasts out there if we want to listen. Just keep promoting your own personal growth and healing. Ways to keep learning, gaining information, and maybe find a safe friend to open up to a little bit as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And I know that the listeners are going to really love this and get a lot out of it. I really, really thank you so much. And I know that you are going to have some wonderful sessions and some wonderful runs coming up. And best of luck on everything.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. It was great to meet you, Martha.
Thank you so much, Jenna, for joining me this week. I truly appreciate it. I don't have guests on a lot these days, but when I do have a guest on, I want it to be someone who is completely relatable to you, the audience. I want it to be a guest who I really want on the show, not someone who out of the blue asks to be on and has nothing to contribute to running. And that's what happened a few months ago when I had guests on almost every week. I just started having all kinds of requests for people who had nothing to do with running. Yeah, why would I have you on my show? You don't contribute anything to my show. You don't contribute anything to the theme of the show. So no. And I got really tired of it. So I stopped taking guests and just decided to go without for a while. And I am taking guests now, but they have to be someone who is in running, someone who works with runners, something that has to do with running, directly with running, not as a side, not partially or in some way far away from it, or could be related somehow in the distance, but no, someone who is directly related to running. It's taking me longer to get back into my running the way I did before. Okay, that's kind of a false statement because I don't think I'm ever going to be the way I was before my fall. I'm a different person now. My attitude is different. My thoughts are different. Everything is different now. I'm not the same. So I have to look at it as differently. Like, okay, I'm different now than I was before. So I'm going slower now. Recovery is slower. Things are slower. I'm very different than I was before. And that's not a bad thing. So my running is coming along, things are going along, and I will achieve what I want to achieve. And it may not be the same as it was before December. It may be different. My goals now are a little different than they were before. And that's okay. Things change. We improve. We adjust our goals. Everything is live your life, have goals, but adjust accordingly. Everything should be adjust accordingly. That's life. And so that's how your life should be. Don't be so rigid that everything in your life is the same all throughout your life. Life is not a straight line. Life is a wiggly, life is like a series of switchbacks, up and down mountains, up and down of switchbacks all the way. That is life. Sometimes you're going downhill and it's fun. Sometimes you're going uphill and it's a bear. That is what life is. So adjust accordingly. And that's how we have to see things all the time. And that's all right. And as I'm older, I can do that, and it's not easier. Maybe I'm stronger than I was before, mentally and emotionally. Physically, I mean, not so much, but mental and emotional strength is much better than physical strength, I think. It's good to have all three, and I'm getting my physical strength back. I'm getting stronger. My arm is getting stronger. My shoulder is getting stronger. I no longer have the pain that I had when I first started running that I had in my shoulder. That's stronger, so that's good. But my emotional and mental strength is way stronger than it used to be. So I think that's all good. So you work on your mental, your emotional strength. You keep up your physical strength, and we'll all get there. We'll all we will all attain our goals. It's just a matter of keep going. Keep going. And the one rule I have is when you fall, you get back up. That's one rule I have. Don't stay down. You fall, you get back up. Okay? So on that note, the website is martharunstheworld.com. Oh, and all of Jenna's information will be on the website, martharunstheworld.com, and I forgot to mention that. Sorry. But everything will be there. If you want to email me, it's martharunstheworld@gmail.com. And let's tie up our shoelaces and go for a run.